really liked bluegrass music when I first started. Of course, it was Bill Monroe and Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and those people. And I cut my teeth on country music when I was a kid. That's what my family listened to and what my friends listened to. But when Elvis came along, it just changed everything for me. Elvis was the guy that put country and rock music together and made it possible for somebody to, all the rock bands had saxophones and keyboards and all that stuff, and it was kind of fancy, but Elvis took a little four-piece band, took guitars, bass, and drums, and started playing rock music, so it made it possible for everybody else to do it. So that's when I got started in rock music.
And I understand a little bit down the road, a Las Vegas favorite influenced you, Louis Prima.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, I was a big Louis Prima fan.
Now, that's fascinating.
Oh, man. Louis Prima had the greatest sound with Sam Butera and the Witnesses. He had the greatest. We came in 1959, was the first time I ever came to Vegas, and he was at, I believe it was Sahara, in the lounge at Sahara. And he started, I forget what time he started, but anyway, he played like all night. He started late and played. And I think we sat through every show except maybe the last one or something. I mean, we were just hung on every word. And we saw him walking down the hall and introduced ourselves to him, and I almost fell on the floor. He was like just a stone down idol of mine. But we played a lot of his music back in 50, 59, 58, 59, 60 along in there. But he had the greatest sound. He just had an incredible sound.
That's right. Now, that jazz, that's an boy, what a lot of influences you put right there. There's the rock, the bluegrass, there's the
bluegrass.
Jazz. Bluegrass.
Bluegrass. I like that. That's great. Bluegrass.
Bluegrass. It does sound terribly British. But I would say it's true in England. When I was growing up back in the 60s, we hear a lot about all that rock and roll music, but one of the most avant-garde things was bluegrass. Monroe, Flatt and Scruggs. I mean, this was names that I would, I'd get my import albums. It was very exciting. And we used to buy the hats. I mean, did you know that there was that huge cult at that point?
There was. I knew that the Wembley gathering had a lot of people, and we had seen a lot of film of people that go to the Wembley Festival, and they had. We noticed they dressed in hats. Some of them had fake guns on and stuff. They really got into it. You could tell they did. But I found that a lot of parts of Europe are still very much, not just England, but parts of Europe are very much still in very traditional country music. They like Roy Acuff, and they like the older music, and I do too. I love it. I think some of the best country music ever made was back in those days.
Well, it is now. We've started, so you're listening to this kind of music. Now, the first band, what was your first band?
The name of my first band?
Yes.
We were a direct rip-off of the Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and the Foggy Mountain Boys. We couldn't be the Foggy Mountain Boys, so we were the Misty Mountain Boys.
Oh, that's good, the Misty Mountain Boys.
When was that? When?
That was a high school band. We first formed it back in I finished school in 55, so probably 53, somewhere along in there, 53, 54, and 55 along in there.
Well, that was good music. So that was you starting on that. And how long did it take you till you had a band and you were recording?
I made my first record actually in 59. I was, let me preface this with a little bit of background. I first started playing professionally in Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is the home of the 2nd Marine Division. That was who we played for mostly, was the Marines that would come into town. And I met a guy there by the name of Bill Belcher from Fort Worth, Texas. Well, make a long story short, we got to be good friends, and he got out of the service and went back to Fort Worth. We were going to California, my first trip to California, and of course I was just a kid. I was very excited, and we went through Fort Worth to see him, and met a guy by the name of Bob Johnston. And Bob Johnston said he was working at Bell Helicopter at the time and doing records on the side. He knew we were a band. He said, "How'd you like to make a record?" Yeah, let's do that. So we went in the studio, made a record, and it was called Jaguar. And it was a single release. It was we made a couple of singles, in fact. But Bob Johnston went on from there and went on to be producer of Simon and Garfunkel, Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, Marty Robbins, Johnny Cash, some of their better-known records.
You were a session player with a lot of these guys.
I was when I first went to Nashville. Yeah.
That's the part now. That interesting trilogy in Dylan's career. He made first of all Nashville Skyline, then Self Portrait, and I know you did the dubs. A lot of the dubs.
I was on both.
Self Portrait.
I was on both of those
and
records.
And then New Morning.
New Morning. All three of those. Those were three records I made with Bob.
And that's an interesting trilogy because
is.
he discovered something new. Now, what were you thinking when you saw this Bob Dylan arriving? He must have been quite a different kind of a person than you were used to.
I had heard all kinds of things about Bob Dylan, about that he was hostile to this and that and all the other things. And when I went, I was working in a nightclub in Nashville. I wasn't doing that many sessions, and I told Bob Johnston, I said, you know, look, I want to do one Dylan session. I love Bob Dylan. I'd like to play on one session. So he booked me on the 6 o'clock session. Sessions in Nashville are like 4 times a day, and there's one at 6 and one at 10. 10, 2, 6, and 10. So I was going to play the 6 o'clock session and go play my beer joint. So we got through playing the first session, and I started packing my guitar up, and Dylan said, "Where's Charlie going?" Bob Johnson said, "He's leaving. I got another guitar player coming." He said, "I don't want another guitar player. I want him." Well, I grew about 10 feet in that moment, because that was such a shot in the arm to me, because a lot of people in Nashville didn't like the way I played. I played too bluesy. I played too loud. I was just a totally different animal from what was going on in Tennessee Nashville at that time. And Bob Dylan's had a very soft spot in my heart ever since then, and went on to do the other 2 albums with him. But I found him to be a warm person with a sense of humor. I think he's shy around a lot of people, or around people that he don't feel comfortable about. But a lot of the things about Bob Dylan being in any way hostile or anything like that, I would like to dispel that right now and say he's a very nice guy.
That's
You've worked with a lot of great artists, because a historical thing, the Volunteer Jam. Now everybody knows about the Volunteer Jam, but they might not know where it started. How did that all start?
We were doing an album called Fire on the Mountain back in 1974. And we wanted to do 2 live cuts, and the only place we could draw a crowd at that time was in our hometown. So we cut. Tennessee's known as a volunteer state. Go Vols, by the way. Way to go, boys. They won the SEC championship yesterday, but that's getting off the thing. But anyway, Tennessee's a volunteer state, and we got some recording equipment together and hired a small hall. You notice I said hired, it didn't say rented. You're having an impression on me.
There you go, hired.
We hired.
You managed to put 8 extra syllables in a hired.
We hired a small hall, and kind of casually invited some of our buddies to come and jam with us, you know. So that first year we had some of the Marshall Tucker Band and Dickie Betts from the Allman Brothers Band, and we got a recording done, and we just had such a great time doing it, and the people that came enjoyed it. And we said we ought to do this once in a while. So we've done, I think, 15 of them now.
Oh, it's been incredible. From B.B. King to the Oak Ridge Boys, from James Brown to Tanya Tucker, everybody.
We've had, gosh, yeah, James Brown, Little Richard. We've had, I cannot even begin to tell you the artists we've had. We've had everybody from Willie Nelson to Bill Monroe.
How long those jams go? I've heard stories where you went 10, 11 hours.
We used to run about 8 hours. We've run as many as 25 acts past in 8 hours.
Wow.
And maybe it would be down to where some of the acts are going to do one song, you know.
Really?
But it was a lot of fun. It's great time.
It sounds great. Now, so you've played sessions with Dylan, which must have been very exciting. And then when did you get your first real breakthrough? What was the album that really kicked it off?
I got my first recording contract in 1971, and I made some albums, and I had my first hit record in 73, which was on the 3rd album I made. It was a song called An Easy Rider. And then in 75, we had an album called Fire on the Mountain that still sells to this day some of our better known tunes that people seem to enjoy on their Long-Haired Country Boy and South's Gonna Do It Again, and not Legend Willie Swamp, but anyway, those. And then we had, in 1979, we recorded an album called Million Mile Reflections that had a song called Devil Went Down to Georgia on it. And it was, you know, I thought it would be a good song for us. I had no idea it would be. It was an international hit. It was like a hit in Australia and Israel and all over the place, and it just blew me away. You know, I mean, for me to think about somebody in another country, you know, that's across the pond actually listening to our music is pretty wild. And we had an album after that called Full Moon. It was a good album for us. We sold about 18 million albums through the years.
When you do these albums, do you try to capture as much as you can that live energy of the Charlie Daniels Band?
Yeah, we do. In fact, the last album we did is a blues album, and we did it very much that way. We have our own studio now. We've kind of just kept putting things together. We actually can record at our studio, and we go in. We're not concerned about paying for the studio time. It's not it's not an hourly thing. We don't have to look at the clock and everything. It's about 3 minutes from my house, and if we want to work 15 hours a day, we can do it. And you sit there and do something until you get it like you want it. And we take the whole band in and, you know, sit there and jam until we come up with what we want.
That's great. So you've always managed to keep a very individualistic blend of what you do right through. You've never been easy to pigeonhole, have you?
I don't know. People ask me what I play, what kind of music I play constantly, and I say I play American music. And this is my humble opinion. And I think the only music that we ever original music that we ever contributed to the World Bank of music, if you will, is the blues. Because you could say, well, country music, well, we refined country music, but it came from Western Europe, and a big influence. British Isles had incredible influence for the folk songs and the rondelays and the hoedowns and the jigs and all of the things that, of course, fiddle's very popular in Ireland and Scotland, and the folk music is kind of what country music, the cornerstone of country music, and of course jazz and rock was started here, but that is the cornerstone of that is the blues. So it's actually, it was like, to me, that is the one original music that we have contributed to the world. And there's only 12 notes of music in the world. Mozart dealt with the same notes that, that B.B. King deals with, and they just played them in different ways and put them together in different ways. And my feeling is, I'd hate to be pushed in a box where I can only listen to or play one kind of music. I like a variety of music, and we tend to, when we write music, we may mix 2 or 3 different styles together. We may put a touch of jazz in with, something that's kind of rocking along with a little country flavor to it. I see nothing wrong with that.
I think it's wonderful.
It is wonderful.
And that, to me, is very exciting when you hear an artist who's secure enough in their roots that they realize it can encompass larger areas than one would formally expect with it.
I read something. I want to find out if it's true. I read something that lately you've been putting down some music tracks and then going in and writing the lyrics later.
I've always done that.
Have you always done that?
Oh, yeah.
That is really
I used to
awesome.
write, I'd get together with the band and write whole songs, whole arrangements, and the only thing was missing was the vocal, and I wouldn't even have a title for them. I've done that many, many times, yeah.
It probably surprises people because you think Charlie Daniels a lot of storytelling in the music and wonderful lyrics, but it's surprising that you do it that way.
Well, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes there is a lyrical idea, that we start with. But a lot of times, I just go and I get off playing with the band. I love it. I love, sitting down and bouncing ideas off each other.
What about when you've got a statement to make in your songs? I know you've done a lot of social commentary, American Farmer, about the plight of the farmer. I'm thinking Simple Man, about the crime. Another example, In America, about patriotism. You usually have a commentary to make in a lot of your songs.
It's something that happens to be on my mind at the time. The In America song was back during the Iranian hostage crisis when it got kind of unpopular to be patriotic in this country. It was after the the 60s and the Vietnam War and all that sort of thing, and it really hurt the feelings of patriotism. And I think most people had kind of hidden it down inside until this thing happened in Iran, and it really brought everybody's patriotism to the fore. That they were saying, how dare they do that? We ought to go over there and do this and yak. And I said, well, I never thought it'd ever happen again. So you never did think that it ever would happen again in America. That's where the song
And the music helps in that patriotism too. It helps bring people together.
I hope so.
That's wonderful. Now you're going to write a song about Ellen DeGeneres for us?
No, I don't think so. I think
just checking.
I think I better leave Ellen alone.
Okay.
I got nothing against Ellen. It's just,
No.
I've never seen her show, so I can't really comment. But
Just
I do a little
checking. Well,
comedy bit.
I know you do. I think that probably hits a much bigger vein with people around the country than the media would sometimes realize. I think that's probably the levels that you connect on.
Well,
People
the media
are really thinking these things.
The media is sometimes very much out of touch with what people are actually thinking.
I think so too.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. You can go out, you go out into the world and start with the working people, the people that get up and go to work, and a lot of times, I know that what's in the newspaper and on the network news does not reflect the popular opinion of this country at all.
That's right.
I hate polls.
That's right. Well,
Because I think polls affect people's minds. If they say, well, this poll says so-and-so, that the person is apt to be led in that way. I wish, if I had one wish I could wish for America, I wish that everybody in this country would start thinking for themselves, that they would not be influenced by polls, by anything other than what they feel in their heart. When it comes down to voting for somebody, when it comes down to supporting something or not supporting something, that they would not, but that people would stand up and speak their mind and speak the way that they feel about something and not care about the way everybody else. That people would be individualists. God made every one of us different. There's no two. Our fingerprints are different. Our makeup is totally different, and then we tend to sometimes fall in behind a leader like a herd of sheep, and we should never do that. We should question everything. We should support the things we believe in, and to hell with the stuff we don't, and speak our mind about it.
Do you think we're getting
That's right.
too politically correct as a society?
I think political correctness is the biggest bunch of BS it
Yeah.
ever hit. It's nothing but semantics. It's
Right.
just stupid. It's absolutely stupid. I mean, I'm not going to call my horses equine Americans and my dogs canine Americans. I'm just coming down to that. I mean, what's the difference? Really, I mean, it's like Native American or Indian. There's certainly no slamming calling somebody an Indian. What's the difference in that and a Native American? Like I'm Scotch Irish. Am I? What do you call me? Am I supposed to be called a Heinz 57 American?
Celtic American.
Celtic American. There you go. A calorically challenged American.
Or a razorly challenge.
right.
We have something we have to do with
Yeah.
it. We do it with every guest. If you were stranded on a desert island and you had a VCR.
I'm married now. Wait a minute.
Oh, okay. Well then.
Okay, VCR.
You're safe
All right.
with a VCR.
Just a VCR.
And a place to plug it in, and 5 movies to take with you that you might be stranded with just those movies for the rest of your time. Which 5 would you take with you? And you've got to have a guilty pleasure. There's got to
guilty
be one there
pleasure.
that they can't all be Citizen Kane.
No, I don't. I wouldn't take Citizen Kane to start with.
Well, good.
Good.
Amadeus
Amadeus.
Oh,
is
yeah.
a movie that I cannot get enough of. It's something I can go back and periodically watch. There's a movie you probably never heard of that was kind of a B-grade Western that really reflected the tribulations of a trail drive with cattle. It's called Culpeper Cattle Company.
Oh.
I would take that one. I would take Urban Cowboy because I'm in it. No, I wouldn't. No such
Yes.
thing. I'm only kidding. I would probably take maybe Gone with the Wind.
Oh, that's a classic.
I would. How many is that? 3?
Oh, you got at least one or two.
And I ain't got around to my X-rated ones yet.
Well, you're on an island.
I'd never take any X-rated ones. And probably, I'd have to have at least one John Wayne movie. So I would have to decide which one I would want. Let's say
Tough
a
to do.
John Wayne movie. And I would probably take Greatest Story Ever Told. I'm a Christian, and I like either that or maybe something dealing with the life of Jesus Christ I would take with me.
That's a
That's
great
a
pick.
great-
I wanted to
great
ask
list.
you before we got into the list, too, is I read somewhere that you got more letters off your Christian album, The Door, than your previous albums, and that surprised me.
I got more positive letters.
Why do you think
than-
that really hit people right in the heart?
When I did these gospel albums, these Christian albums, I was trying to make a statement that meant much more to me than selling records or anything other than trying to say the way that I felt in my heart and the things that I believe that I know to be true and that I feel are going to happen in this world. And I'm a big scholar, not a scholar, but certainly a fan of Bible prophecy. And there's a lot going to happen in this world in the next several years. And it meant a lot to me to say that on record. And I've got letters from people that understood what I was talking about. Communication, there's nothing in the world like communication. Anybody who can communicate with people, that's everybody called Ronald Reagan the great communicator because he had this big old friendly grin and he spoke in terms that people could understand. But anytime you communicate with people and it's an original thing that you do, something that you've come up with that people like and people write and say, I know what you're talking about, and it was a blessing to me, and that sort of thing. It's great. And I've had so many, I still get them. I still get wonderful letters off the 2 Christian albums that we did.
That's wonderful.
And you have an acoustic album coming up, is that correct?
Well, actually, I hadn't really got that one done yet.
That's a neat
But
idea,
The next
though.
thing we're
That's,
gonna, the next thing we're gonna do, we have an album in the can now. It's called Revival: Greatest Hits of the South. It'll probably be the next thing we release. And what it is, we were part of a very loose confederation of bands called the Southern Bands years ago. There was nothing other than we all came from the same part of the country. There was Leonard Skinner Band, Marshall Tucker Band, and Allman Brothers Band, and us, and a few other people. And I've always admired those bands. I always loved the people in them. And we went in and recorded a Leonard Skinner song. We did Free Bird. We did Statesboro Blues, the Allman Brothers Band. We did Can't You See, Marshall Tucker Band. We did a ZZ Top song, a Hootie and the Blowfish song, and all for bands from the South. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to recut all the old fiddle songs.